We got asked to talk about the topic like right-leaded hill horses, which is ultimately it's a big no-no. I mean, anytime like our event, everything's pulling left all the time, and so anytime that things are going left and you're in the right lead, it's obviously a big no-no. But there are some gray areas that need talked about, and like I've went back and studied horses that you know, that multiple guys won a ton on, and like Jackal was one of them. It looked like majority of the time Jackal left the hill box in his right lead and would create, you know, widen or create his pocket or whatever, and if a cow went to the left, he left in his left lead, you know. But I watched videos of Jade riding him at the NFR, and you know, he would leave, and if the cow was straight or to the right, that horse would always leave in his right lead and then change. And so I hate to say they can never be in their right lead. Personally, if I leave the box and everything's straight or to the right and I widen and they pick up their right lead, it doesn't bother me. I'm not gonna make a big deal about it as long as they switch to their left lead at a good time. So if they leave and I widen and pick up and they're in their right lead, and you know, the head rope goes on and you start to kind of pursue the cow or the turn, if they switch and it's not at a bad time, it doesn't necessarily bother me. Now, if they get on the cow, like get to the cow or get in the turn and they're still in their right lead, that's gonna cause a problem, because as you're thinking about where you're gonna throw, they're gonna be switching leads, and there's gonna be a change in their body and almost kind of a drop in their shoulders as they switch leads. And so a couple different things. If I'm on a green horse that is switching leads late, like if this mare picks up a right lead and she hadn't switched over to her left, instead of pushing her front end over and trying to get her to pick her left lead up, I'm gonna hold her with my left rein, hold her shoulder up, and I'm gonna push with my right leg and try to get her to switch over. And it's same thing like doing lead departures. To do a lead departure, if you're on a line, you know, going in a straight line, you need to be able to push your horse's hips to the inside of that line and pick up your left lead, or push them to the right, you know, to the inside of the line and pick up the right lead. So you don't start on a line and dump your horse's shoulder this way to pick up that lead. And so if they're not changing in time, I'm gonna use my right leg to push that hip in, and I'm gonna hold that shoulder and make them change in their hind end and let their front end follow. This mare is a pretty good topic on it, really, because she's really short backed, and I roped calves on her first, got her real hooked up to a cow, and then when I went to heeling on her, she always wanted over to the cow, which is great. But I kind of manipulated her off the cow enough and framed her shoulders that she got to where she held her shoulders away from the cow and would run in the right lead. And like I said, I didn't mind it down the pin, but when I would go to come through the turn, she wouldn't change very good. And so I started positioning her farther back, pushing her hips in and making her change her lead before she went to the cow. And instead of stopping her and pulling her off the cow when she wanted, like I said, she wanted to be strong to the cow early, instead of reprimanding her for that, I kind of started just making runs, and I wouldn't let her get strong. You know, if she felt strong, I would stop her. But instead of knocking her off my left rein and messing with her shoulders a bunch, I would just stop her and get her to come back to me so she wasn't strong. But I had to just kind of start making runs and going back to getting her in the pattern or a habit of following the cow to the left to get her back in her left lead. And so a lot of times, and especially on the right lead deal, leaving the box, I think you can mess with horses so much that you cause, I hate to say a problem, because I know you're working at fixing something, but you can make kind of a mountain out of a molehill, you know. Like, I know guys that'll pick on them so much over the right lead, left lead deal leaving the box that horses will just want to eat the bridle and run off right there because they're used to getting spurred on or picked on. And instead, like, I just want them to hook up to a cow. Like, leave the box, hook up to a cow. If a cow comes right, you need to get in your right lead to keep your position, that's fine. Cow straightens out, goes back to the left or whatever, switch, you know. That's what I care about. I don't want to pick on them, and I don't want them doing stuff that's not natural for them. You know, every horse has a way of doing stuff that's natural for them, and so I don't want to manufacture so much stuff that my horse isn't reacting off what's natural to them, and that they're doing everything they're doing is like so manufactured that it doesn't have a good feel to it. So there's gray areas in that topic for sure on the right lead, left lead deal, but like ultimately you can't have your horse coming through the turn in his right lead. I don't mind them leaving the box in their right lead as long as they change at a good time. And a lot of people say, oh, I don't ever let them in their right lead. Well, it's like, I get it. The concept, it's a bad concept. You don't like it, I don't like it either, but watch the great horses. Like, sit there and watch an open jackpot, and horses are gonna leave the box in their right lead. It's natural in a lot of cases. So like I said, it's not something everybody loves, and I don't like it either, but at some point, like, you've got to let a horse function how they need to function to do their job, and leaving the box in the right lead sometimes is necessary as long as they switch. It doesn't bother me. They can't go through the turn in their right lead, and they can't follow a cow in their right lead. You know, back to the topic, it's no one ropes the head dummy with their right foot forward. You know, it shifts your shoulders and it makes you weak. It'd be the same. You don't want to heel, I'm not saying you can't, you don't want to heel a cow with your horse in the right lead. It pulls your shoulder forward and it takes power off of everything. And so I explained, you know, if they are in their right lead too long and I got to switch them, how I switch them, but there's some gray areas in that topic, but that's kind of how I feel about it. Another question was if they'll naturally switch to their left lead. If you've picked on them so much sometimes about, and like I said I did on this mare, she wanted to be strong to the cow. I, for lack of better terms, knocked her off the cow so much I made her think that the right lead was correct, and so I had to go back and go the other way and just make runs until she naturally wanted to pick the left lead back up. And so they should naturally want to go to their left lead because everything's always going left. But if they don't, like I said, I don't want to dump their front end to get them to change leads. I'll want to hold that shoulder up and push their hips in and get them to do it like that, just like I said on a lead departure, you know, because if you're just dumping their shoulders in, they're going to pull their shoulders down, and then it pulls your angles down, you know. So they should naturally want to be in their left lead, and that's why a lot of times, sometimes just making runs on horses is the best training method there is, you know. And I always say sometimes it's best to just train them off the cow. You know, I'll just, that first 30, 60 days, I'll just heel the right kind of slow cattle to get them patterned and then start shaping them and bending them, you know. But I just want the run to feel natural.